Hello, and welcome to the Drachnik and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, back after 2 episodes of being on vacation and then being sick, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Drachnik at Drachnik and Friends.
Hey there.
Thank you again for stepping in to host in my absence.
It's easy.
And today, we're joined by Pip Warr, who you may know from her work as narrative director on A Monsters Expedition, work on games like Flock and Little Kitty Big City. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. We love chatting with you, and so this is going to be a lot of fun. So can you start by maybe giving yourself a little bit more of an introduction than what I just gave you for people who do not know you?
So I am a narrative director, designer, writer, probably word doer is probably the main thing, because everything I do ultimately will come back to the building of a narrative space in a game, or the world shape in that play space, essentially. So before that I was a journalist, and before that I was sort of in the art history / museum space for a little bit. So a bit of a circuitous route, I think.
So what got you into working on games?
Well, so I had been working on PC Gamer most recently, and as the deputy editor on their magazine. And then I could feel burnout just stretching its icy little fingers out towards me. And I decided to reassess some things and take a bit of a break. I had the fortune of being able to do that at that particular point in time. It wasn't easy, but at least I could take a little step back. And during that period of me no longer being a games journalist, Alan reached out and had an intriguing little proposal of would I like to audition for working on Monsters Expedition?
See, I'd kind of forgotten that you hadn't done a lot of games writing before that. Is that, had you really not done anything that I would have been thinking of at the time?
I forget the order of things. I think I may have done the editing pass on Terry Kavanagh's Dicey Dungeons.
That makes sense, because I think it may have been Holly who first mentioned your name to me and said, oh yeah, Pip might be great for this.
But and I think I'd done a couple of little twine things of my own, just about going for little walks, and mostly it was an excuse to write a passive-aggressive exchange between the narrator and the person who maybe would keep just picking the option of going on a bad walk that was not going to be fun for them. So there was a little bit of that, and also the acclaimed video game Avocado Pusher, using your what's it called? I'm so sorry, my brain is not doing with the memory today. But the tool set that you came up with for moving things around and making Sokoban-esque games.
Puzzle script.
Yes. So I essentially made a game which had exactly one level, and you used a finger to push an avocado into, I think, possibly a swimming pool. But, that was enough to get a little quote from Tom Francis. So I made a little poster to sort of be like, acclaimed video game maker Tom Francis says, whatever he'd said. I may have really selectively edited the quote as well. But so who knows which one of those it could possibly have been.
No, I mean, it was probably talking to Terry and Holly about the narrative of the game, and we were in a place where we'd gone through a couple of years of having some forms of narrative on Monster Expedition, and they'd all not quite, they'd either increase the complexity of the game or increase the scope of things, or like it was interconnected in such a way that the narrative was putting too many constraints on the rest of the game. And so we were trying to like reboot the project, find a new narrative direction, and it would have been chatting to people. And your name came up. We chatted to you. We already had some like museum adjacent ideas in the mix, but we hadn't settled on any of them. And I mean, your playfulness and your sense of humor came across very, very quickly, I think.
Yeah. Also, I think maybe just my experience of very much poking around in museum archives and things as well, as part of the volunteer work I used to do. So I think that there's a certain absurdity that I could bring to the project once that idea really came into focus for us. I think, at particular times there were elements of the game which ultimately we didn't choose to include, but that helped flesh out that idea, that were a little bit from personal experience, like the sanctity of tea time,
Yeah, no, I mean, very, very deeply British game, but also very, very funny. Alan, do you remember anything else about like what the state of the game was when you were looking for narrative design work?
I mean, we would have had a lot of it. Like there would have been hundreds, thousands of islands. There would have been a playable, like a version of it, which was like where those islands were linked together in some kind of start to finish way. Probably a lot of the pieces were like ordered very differently, introducing some of the twists in a very different order. So I think you could have gotten a good sense of the game and what we were going for in terms of the puzzle. I don't remember if we would have had a build that had some narrative elements that we would later pull out, or whether we'd already pulled out all of that stuff knowing we wanted kind of a clean slate.
If memory serves, you actually sent me a build of the game that I could noodle around in when I was coming up with some ideas, and it didn't have any narrative attached to it as yet. It was we'd talked about your ideas, or the direction that you felt that it was headed, but when I actually got my fingers into the game at that point, it was very much a kind of, oh, okay, I see this, I see the art style, I see, the space that the idea needs to match up with or mesh with in some way. But beyond that, I think it was a bit later that you told me about some of the ideas that had come before. And that was an interesting thing just to hear about.
Yeah, because I think we didn't want to come in it saying like, okay, here's all the ideas we've got. You've got to make them work. We definitely wanted somebody who could like find a new spin on things. What was your very first impressions of the game?
I definitely just found it very charming and very well presented in terms of it's very simple to get the hang of. And then it was about the moments of small accomplishment or little delight that I had as I was like just playing with those ideas and figuring out how to solve the things that had come out of your brain and collaborator brains and everything. So yeah, but it was very much, there was a simplicity to it that I loved and wanted to try and augment or, not interfere with.
Do you remember if it had the title card moment when we first showed it to you?
I think it did, or at least that was where the build cut off, maybe. I can't remember. I feel like we had so many conversations and there was, like different points in time where the game existed in, had slightly different ways of being in terms of, where things were. So I might be just rewriting history on that one, because it feels like it would have been a neat thing, and you would have known very early on when that moment needed to come. So yeah, I certainly don't remember any conversations about where it should be, or
Right.
I think there may have been at one point a should we move this that was almost immediately answered with a no. So
Okay, that probably answers my question, because there was definitely periods of development where I thought that moment should go really late, because it's a like mechanical surprise that, oh, you could have been doing this the whole time. And like, yeah, once we moved it early, it was very obvious that like, oh no, the surprise of this moment and the joy of this moment is like really strong. That even if it's a mechanical thing that you could save for later, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's kind of it's not the same feeling, but it reminded me when you were just saying of that idea that you should always end a chapter on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because it immediately gives you a thing where you're like, well, I can't go to bed now. I have to use this new thing that I've been given and explore the world in this way now and figure out what that opens up,
Yeah. And like, not quite the same thing, but I think sometimes we were trying to do a similar thing with the exhibits of like placing something that looked weird, and like knowing that like seeing something weird on the next island over was going to be an enticement to get there.
Yeah, there was definitely a whole bunch of that in the conversations that we had about placement and where things might lead people, or what might be enticing or weird enough to galvanize a kind of, oh, I'd like to go to there kind of response from people. And also, I think that once they hopefully quickly understood that the monsters, even though these objects are broadly hopefully understandable, or they are understandable, it's like, oh, I recognize that from day-to-day life nowadays, but the reveal of what the monsters thought that this stuff would have been was still going to have to wait until the object was encountered up close, because you have to read the short text on the plinth for that to happen.
Yeah. And do you remember how you got to the monster's perspective? Like, did we come to that really quickly? Did that take a while?
I think that it didn't take too long to get the broad tone of it right. I don't think that I'd need to go back through the email that I sent you, but I feel like that actually has stayed pretty consistent from beginning to end. It was more about finesse, or what the shape of the world behind this law was, because there are some crucial differences from our universe. For example, there is leech-based technology, which I guess scientists just couldn't be bothered to make work in our universe. Whereas in this, there were some odd tech things in that vein, which became a bit more of a thing that I could riff with or reference in other exhibits, and have a bit of a sense of, oh, okay, this is the flavor of human that has existed in this space, or these are the types of conflict that they would have, or those kinds of things were, I guess, bigger, or that was more the evolution on that front. But I do remember that there was a point where, so I can't remember how far in we were, but I remember there being a point where you asked me if I could have a think about a more narrative, as in traditional narrative story, beginning, middle, end, or at least apply something a bit more start, middle, and then concluding act to the game. And we did experiment with some things there, but ultimately it just didn't really suit the the shape of the puzzles and how they connected together. This kind of exploration that is kind of guided because obviously you have set the puzzles up, and in some of the scenarios, you'd need to follow a particular chain, and you do a really good job of leading people around those, or without it feeling like you're being funneled. But there is still enough noodling that the player can do, or choice about what to focus on if they see a distracting little island somewhere over there and want to see if they can reach it this way. Then it just made everything a lot harder if we wanted to have a bit more of a story thing, because it would have then involved, okay, well, how do we make sure that the player has the right information by this point in time? How are we going to organize things? Does it then make the game a bit more linear? Does it, where can we then put the ending? Is it, like, how do you keep enticing the person through? Like, what are we, all of that kind of stuff then would have had to become a bit more of a question mark. Plus, you wanted to be able to sprinkle whatever we were using for storytelling across these islands, but it wasn't set in stone as to which would go where, and you wanted the flexibility to be able to move things around even late in the day. And so pegging that to narrative as well would have just, I think that would have just caused you to have a big cry, I think. And not just you, I would have had a big cry also.
Everyone would have been sad.
Yeah, no, and structure of sort of open world games and narrative is obviously one struggle. Another is trying to come up with like the internal logic and rules of this world, which I remember that as late as I came onto the project, some things were still in flux. What are your strongest memories of that process?
I think, I'd be interested to hear yours actually as well. But I definitely, so the thing that I remember the most, are you comfy, Alan, with me talking about like one of the other ideas that we kicked around for the thing?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that was a bit more of a traditional narrative than sort of a chocolate selection box of treats, was the idea that you were working your way towards Medusa. At the end of the game, you would have some sort of an encounter with her, and so we would still have had statues and things, but it would be her chain of islands where she had been existing for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And so all of the what now are exhibits could have been just statues, or stone renderings of various bits and pieces that had essentially got too close or tried to impinge on her space. And then the further you got in, the more stuff you would find that was a bit more people on a hero quest, or the debris of the thwarted heroes and other challengers to whatever she was going to be doing in this world, whether she was faithfully adapted from mythology or whether it had gone in a bit of a different direction, and was more just, okay, well, the idea of a Gorgon, in terms of mechanically just turning people to stone. So that was an interesting thing to noodle with. But ultimately, there were enough, I guess, points where I would have wanted to, or it would have felt like it was necessary to have slightly harder edges, I guess, on the narrative than it was comfy to have in that space. It was ultimately a bit of I mean, I hate the terminology because it feels like it doesn't quite ever match up to the thing, but cozy or wholesome games, it is very much in that bracket. And so I think I am always keeping an eye on just how acerbic I'm allowed to be, or I allow myself to be, because it can be very easy to turn a space that needs to be safe in order to fulfill those criteria, or at least to sort of be a wholesome thing without the need for any clarifications or sort of upfront.
And the moment you've got a Gordon turning people into stone, there's a tension there.
It was more that I think I was interested in hewing a bit more closely to the mythology, and that immediately goes into some territory, because essentially Medusa is being punished by the gods for being assaulted, and it is like, okay. Like, that automatically introduces some problems.
Yeah, that's that whole mythology, unfortunately.
I mean, it's, anytime there is any mythology anywhere, it sort of, you start a little countdown.
How is it the woman's fault?
Yeah, exactly.
The whole story of Zeus is, how is it the woman's fault?
I know. Or just, I was just minding my own business, pretending to be a cloud and doing some terrible things.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, you're like, oh. Anyway. So I don't know if that really answered your question, because it's more about what it wasn't, I suppose, than what it has ended up as.
No, I mean, that's still very, very interesting. I'm thinking more like, by the time that I came in, there was still a debate about zoo-like exhibits.
Yeah. I think the closest we ever got to that is the reverse mermaid, right?
Right, yeah, but we were very, very careful to make sure that, like, well, they want to be on that rock. They're not, like, in a cage.
Yeah. I mean, you could absolutely envision the trip that the monster takes, and there's actually a sign saying, be right back, out to lunch or something. Like, this is not an unhappy situation. This is just, that's the rock where the reverse mermaid enjoys dancing. So, but yeah, so there were things like that. We also, at various points, tried to tackle some of the slightly more complicated, or not tackle exactly, but, museums are often at heart problematic in a whole bunch of ways, but, appropriation, cultural theft.
Yes.
So it's going to, and it's deeply rooted in colonial history. And so, again, it's this sort of very odd tension that you deal with, at least on the back end, if you're responsible, of like how, not ignoring that question, but at least
perhaps making that the first exhibit of let's get this out of the way.
I wanted to definitely be able to have an answer for if that came up, I wanted to be able to say, like, I know that this is really complicated and we've been able to do this or we haven't been able to do that. But I wanted to be able to say we've thought about it and we tried a few things and, so yeah, that is, I feel like I've completely lost the question again. I need to write things down. More
You're
writing.
Fine. Do you have any exhibits off the top of your head that you're sad couldn't be worked into the final game, either because of scope or art limits, or just like it was too complicated with the rest of the story that was being told? Or
I think there was something that we couldn't make work because of something to do with the way that shaders worked in the game, because I really wanted to have essentially, I think, a giant cup of tea where you would just be able to dangle your feet in, or, and it would have, a giant tea bag floating in the water maybe, or something like that. But it just wasn't possible for some reason. And I can't remember the ins and outs. It's one of those things where we would need to prod at Adam and Adam de Grandis and just sort of say, do you remember why that didn't work? But yeah, I really wanted to be able to do a little bit more with the idea of water in the game, and we couldn't quite make that work. And there was also something where we were talking about, so in relation to the thing I mentioned earlier, which is the sanctity of tea time or coffee breaks and biscuits and things. At one point we were talking about potentially having a door that was staff only, and having some sort of actually potentially a scene staff, rather than the monster being the character that you see, and no one else. And so that was something that I would have been interested in trying to figure out, but it just it wouldn't have made any visual sense. It was, I think, do you remember, Alan? It was something where maybe even it was going to be part of the save system, that you would essentially just sit down for a cup of tea and that would be the save, almost like a bonfire in Dark Souls. But I might be completely...
I mean, we definitely had, for a while, we were thinking we would have literal bonfires as like checkpoints. Yeah, I only vaguely remember this like a tea break room idea, but now you're talking about, I can definitely picture the idea of like a TARDIS like door into this like side world that's like, oh yeah, the tea break room is connected to all of the universe.
I'm sorry to do this to you, but the two of you are British and are going to need to explain what a TARDIS is for our non-Tumblr, non-British
TARDIS?
audience.
Everyone, Doctor Who is global now. Everyone knows the TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than the outside.
Yeah, so global that Disney Plus returned the IP.
Wow, what does Disney Plus know?
I mean, exactly. I'm sorry, Syrenne. Are you saying that only things that Disney acknowledges are allowed to exist?
No, what I'm saying...
You only recognize Disney IPs.
No, what I'm saying is that Disney tried to put tens of millions of dollars into episodes and no one cared about it.
So a TARDIS is a nerd thing that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. I'm pretending that I'm not a nerd and can't tell you what the acronym is for.
I see.
How am I doing? Am I passing for
you're
a
passing.
normal?
I just want to know that there are going to be some people who are not sci-fi television nerds and not in the Great British Empire that have to pay their license fee.
I don't think so.
I mean, specifically talking about Monsters Expedition as well. That game is. I think if you don't really know British culture, you may struggle.
I mean, I think there's like a charmingness to it.
I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. There's probably like, I think there's only like 10 or so that are not also like distinctly American experiences.
I'm sure that some people learned about cream tea from this game.
That's one of the ones that is very, very British.
I think the intention was to build it so that it made sense for anybody with an understanding of Britain that was mostly just built off Netflix having the Great British Baking Show, as it is called overseas, on
what do you call it there?
Bake Off.
Okay.
Great British Bake Off. So yeah, and sort of, or maybe their understanding would come from Agatha Christie books, or the very
maybe not
sort
Agatha
of
Christie.
No,
unless we want to get really racist.
Yeah. Well, it's very much. Essentially, I was thinking of the conversations I have with cab drivers if I'm overseas, or with the barista who is dealing with my coffee order, and I'm sitting there saying, "Can I have an iced coffee without all the sugar?" And they're kind of like, "Wait, what?" Also, is your accent South African? And I'm like, "Aha!"
Oh
no.
my gosh. Anyways, what a weird tangent we just went on, as happens when it's the three of us chatting.
Can I quickly ask, actually, what are the, like, do you know off the top of your head any of the other exhibits that were just sort of like maybe just in that same realm of hyper British?
Oh, the tea wartime.
Yeah.
AKA one of the only two that mattered for age ratings. Because so it's been enough years. I'll tell this podcast. This podcast has had explicit episodes. So one of the exhibits when I came in that I demanded was changed, that you were actually sad about, I don't know if you remember this, is the there's a box of
is it the
sugary cereal?
Yes.
And the joke is all the crap that they put in kids cereal, all the chemicals, all the food coloring and dye and everything, and it just kept going on and on and on, and it was like it was a run-on joke of every second thing we're just going to keep plussing it up until the final punchline is we added LSD. And I'm like, you are mentioning LSD here is going to shoot our age rating to the roof. It is going to become a 17+ game immediately. We've got to remove the LSD joke. I
was so annoyed because I'm like, look, I have been to the World of Coca-Cola Museum, whatever it is, in Atlanta, and I am not the person who was putting like cocaine in things for children. So
no, and then Pepsi and Pepsine, yes, no, all of this stuff is just hard drugs in treats, and I understand.
How dare you try and limit my artistic voice?
Look, part of my job is to be the unfortunate bearer of bad news about age ratings.
Do you know what? I have carried that forward, though, because it's something that I had obviously not had much experience of at that point, or at least, you know, it was something that, you know, I would write the thing and then we would, you know, discuss
down
how that had gone. Exactly. But it's actually been really useful to be able to see a few things coming in other games that I've worked on. I can't specifically remember the scenarios, or maybe they would be probably a bit under NDA. But, you know, there were definite moments where I was like, Syrenne would be so proud of me right now.
See, I'm glad. My influence extends to games I do not work on.
It's like, I think you'll find we might get bumped up an age rating with that.
Yes. No, our 2 age rating exhibits for people who are curious. There is the one about two different groups of people of two different preferences of how to enjoy. Is it like crumpets or something with their tea?
Cream tea. So whether you put jam on first or cream.
Yes, and then they say that they had a brief war about it and then had a picnic. And that mention of the brief war is not enough to bump the age rating, but it is enough to get the phrase violent references on our age rating as a descriptor, which is something I had never heard of before.
Wow.
Because usually you get like cartoon violence or something, because like when it comes to a category, like for example, violence as a category, they're not going to list the most, like if it's like strong violence, they're not also going to list cartoon violence. And I've had never seen a game that only had violent references before. So that was us. And then the other one was one of the exhibits about what a leech likes to eat. And it's like the leech likes ink, but then has like strong opinions about red wine. And so we also have alcohol reference.
Yeah.
Again, neither of these got us above an E. Like we didn't get to E10. This was just like E for everyone. But parents should know that we mentioned alcohol once and we mentioned violence once.
The existence of these things.
If you don't want your kid knowing about the concept of war or the concept of alcohol, this game is not for you.
Which is very funny. And then, like 6 months later, we got a 16 plus age rating on Bonfire Peaks. So. You know, age ratings and all. That eventually we couldn't appeal that until the game released, and then a human took one look at that game and said, "Why did the automated system spit out a 16 plus for this?" To be clear, when it came to America, our age rating was consistent the whole time. It was specifically Europe and Peggy that went from 16 plus all the way down to 7 plus when a human saw it.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Thinking about the LSD again, I feel like if we really wanted to get it into the game, what we could have done is we could have come up with an alternate history LSD-like substance, which is not a real drug, but just has some side effects that might correlate with
what you could have done is made an acronym for something that had L, S, and D as the first letters.
Yeah, like we could have said LSD and then put an asterisk, and then a bit further down the description, just, you know, have a kicker that is the explanation of the acronym that takes it neatly away from being a drug reference.
Yeah, like there are ways to mitigate the concern. I will say, Apple was involved in this one, so we had to play it especially safe.
Yeah, definitely. I remember the outrage at this point. Like, now that you've brought it up, I'm like, yeah, actually, I was prepared to die on that hill for some reason.
yeah, for some reason you were. I remember that was like, that was you and I's biggest debate. And I just had to keep pointing back to, I'm sorry, Apple's not going to let this stay in the game.
Yeah, you were like, I personally am fine with this. And
yes,
I'm like,
yes, but me.
Sir, we need to talk about the liberties that are being taken.
Yeah, we had probably already at this point committed to Apple. This is the age rating this game is
yes, we
did.
Well, the thing is, I'd probably already submitted an alternate thing. I was probably just banging on about this thing that I clearly felt strong.
Yes, I think you did, but you were like, but Syrenne, it makes the joke so much better. And I believe I just simply said, it does, period. We need to change it, period.
Yeah, I think I just, at that point, I'm always just like, look, I will just blow off my steam in a Google comment. So, you know.
Yeah, my Slack DMs are a safe space for you to complain about the real world and the age ratings, as long as the final shipping game doesn't talk about LSD.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, this was the first DirectNet game to get localized, speaking of Apple and the writing.
Mm.
And I
Oh
was...
gosh, I remember this.
Yes, so there was not just a US English localization that we had to do for hilarious reasons, but which literally just involved going in and replacing the spelling of like every other word in some of these
yeah.
to
How many
Americanize
Z's would you like to put in? Or Z's, sorry.
Yes, Z.
Yeah.
Yes. Take out the British U in every word except for glamour, because for some reason we keep it in glamour, but only glamour. Just incredible, arbitrary everything with the US English. But my favorite is that when the game gets localized, it gets localized into 13 languages, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's an enormous script. Like, there's so much writing, and it's all comedy writing, which means, Pip, you and I, if you probably blocked this out because you did not enjoy this process at all.
Oh, I am having so many flashbacks
You and I spent
right now.
1 week where we just pieced out from the rest of the dev team and wrote comedy explanations for every single joke in the game to make sure that the translators, for whom English is probably not their first language, understood the joke and what they were and were not allowed to take creative liberties on.
Yeah, it was actually a really interesting process. So I didn't mind doing it. I think it was more just that, like, I knew that it was, I think we were under a bit of time pressure at the time.
When I say we took a week, I mean, we had 1 week.
Yeah, exactly.
It was not able to go to the 8th day.
Yeah, I'm so tempted to look it out. Would that be okay? Shall I see whether I can find it?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of just like sitting down and unpacking the humor, but it was also like a justify your writing kind of exercise in a weird way.
Yeah, it was very much a kind of, by the end of it, I was like, is any of this funny? Like,
yes, the answer was yes.
What have I done?
I will say, watching like Twitch streamers, like there were a bunch of Brazilian Portuguese Twitch streamers when the game came out that played the game, and they all laughed at all the right moments, like consistently every single time. And I was like, this is incredible. Alan has found the document.
Yeah, I've just clicked on it.
There it is. So here's I'm gonna pick a random example. Okay. Bottled water. Oh no, that one didn't get into the game. If it's in yellow, it didn't get into the game. Okay. Emergency cheese sandwich. Inscription reads, in case of emergency, please break glass to release cheese sandwich. Breaking glass will activate sandwich alarm. Penalty for misuse of emergency cheese sandwich, £3.50. So that is the actual text in the game.
Yeah.
Localization notes. References emergency tools like hammers or fire extinguishers. The joke is that the emergency in question is feeling a little bit hungry. The penalty fee is also very low.
Yeah, it was like, it was making sure that in an event where there wasn't a direct translation, or where the direct translation would just sort of render the whole thing weird because this particular thing is so idiomatic or so.
I mean, here's a really big one.
Sort of
bees knee pads scale model.
Oh god.
Here you see one full set of protective padding designed to fit the legs of an adult honeybee. Humans created these support garments to help protect the bee's knees, a valuable commodity in England. And then localization notes, it's the bee's knees is a common phrase in England. It means that a thing is excellent. This exhibit shows protective equipment for the knees of an actual bee, suggesting that humans started to take the phrase literally and wanted to safeguard a valuable commodity.
God, yeah, it was...
This document is hundreds of lines long.
It's huge, isn't it? I just like...
Also, the ones in yellow did make it into the game. It's the one that red at the bottom that didn't, but I'm
Oh, yes. I don't remember what the yellow ones are then.
The yellow was probably that I'd had a pass over it, like at the 11th
probably.
hour,
Yes,
and needed
I'm looking.
to attract your attention.
Yes. For people who are, because we're already talking about the dark all history of this game. For people curious, the 6 ones in red at the bottom of the document are a dinosaur ghost, origami crane deprecated, pet tree deprecated, skimming stone deprecated. I wonder why skimming stone was. Oh, that was probably just a tech limitation because of the water.
I mean, I think skimming stone probably didn't look visually interesting.
Yeah. Child's hat and frog prison outfit. I wonder why frog prison outfit was deprecated.
Yeah. Well, actually, that was another one where I was a bit like, oh, I'm sad about that.
Yes,
like I didn't,
The joke
object,
on frog prison outfit is after each being issued with shoes and a backpack, open parentheses, the result of a local election gone awry, close parentheses, frogs began to experiment with object acquisition. The owner of this outfit was caught acquiring a watch, 3 diamond rings, and a whistle.
Yeah, this is the thing, because it was the concluding part of a joke that one of the other items set up, I think. There was a frog. Yeah, so if you go to line 52, it's a frog work outfit, which is during one local election in England land, a human candidate pledged to make frogs useful. After the curious electorate voted for this scheme, every frog in the district was fitted with shoes and a backpack and told to get on with it. But the idea, I guess the punchline for that was that the frog in question turned out to have taken that as permission to just nick things, or it's the frog had acquired a work ethic but hadn't been told where on a human morality scale that needed to exist.
Yes, this whole document is such a blast from the past because it is in a good way, because it really is just respectfully, most of these do not play if you don't have visuals.
Oh God, no, they really
and so paragraphs of text explaining that scream if you want to go faster, keep your arms and legs inside the ride at all times, and you must be this tall to ride the coaster. What context those 3 exhibits take on. I just want to read one that I haven't read in a long time.
Oh God.
The Sudoku Cult of 2214. Poorly designed newspaper editor AIs occasionally cause sections of the paper to bleed into one another. One such incident inspired the founding of a cult whose prime text was an unsolvable Sudoku puzzle composed entirely from sports emoji. Pip, you wrote this before Gen AI.
I predicted the future. Join my Sudoku cult.
So the unread book amnesty was 2025, and this is 2214. Did you get the 2 years mixed up?
Look.
I'm just putting this out there. The one that stays the most in my head, Pip, is the nightmare that you unleashed on Mike Robinson and I with Watermelon. And the localization notes are so unassuming for how hellish this localization was.
What was that one? You'll have
Previously
to remind
thought
me.
To be a simple compound of the human words water and melon, we now understand the etymology of watermelon to be a corruption of the exclamation, what a melon, which was often triggered by the size of the fruit.
Right.
Pip, all of this is about English phonetics.
I know, and it's such a dad joke as well.
It's a dad joke, but when I tell you, Pip, that it was already tough to support Arabic as a right-to-left language. And the Arabic localization decided, correctly, that watermelon, and watermelon all needed to be in English, left to right, in the middle of right to left, and that this one string needed to be hard-coded and QA'd on every device and resolution.
That definitely doesn't sound like a me problem, so I don't know what you're worried about.
I mean, we could have made it a you problem by telling you, "Hey, Pip, you gotta write another joke here." But no.
Instead, Mike Robinson and I went to hell. so that watermelon in Arabic looked right. And to this day, like when we released that game on PlayStation 4 and 5, which is like the most recent port, and Android, which was the most recent port. Every single time I make a beeline for the watermelon and check it in Arabic. That is my primary text. Because that game, that text is the most complicated line of text in the entire game by a lot.
That's intense. I didn't realize.
Yeah, you said you really.
I apologize.
No, you're fine. It's just like most of these were edited after you knew that localization was going to happen. However, I don't suspect that you edited this one after knowing that the localization was going to happen. Or if you did, it just didn't click for you. 100% of the joke is English phonetics.
I think I think that might have been something that there are so many objects in the game that I think it was a team effort at that point. I think it was a case of, if there is something that looks like it's going to really, really not translate, let me know. Otherwise, I think what we were trying to do, which is what the document is about, is essentially just give enough context that if this joke doesn't work, here's the spirit of it, so that the translator, the specific person, could then take it and do something that at least honored the vibe of the game. So I personally would have been totally fine if the Arabic translator had actually just sort of
written a new joke.
Well,
written a similar joke.
Yeah, or done something with, maybe I don't know Arabic at all. So it's very much like if the word for watermelon in Arabic had a different sort of
phonetic
etymology or a different phonetic breakdown that lent itself to another dad joke. That would have been fine.
But for what it's worth, they kept your jokes as close as possible.
I mean, to be fair to them, they are there to, I can imagine that it's like, I don't get paid enough to deal with this woman's nonsense.
I'm just checking. Like in French, it's definitely a different pun depending on the different word.
Different translators handled it differently because I very, very explicitly, Pip, you weren't on this email. When I emailed the translators to ask for a quote, the two things I said were, one, it's a lot of text and it's a rush job, and so I'm very sorry about that. And two, to hopefully make up for it, most of this is humor. It is more important that the spirit of the humor carries over than the direct text, so please let your translators have fun.
Yeah, that's such a good note, because I think that's the big thing that we needed.
Yes, it needed to be funny more than they needed to be confused about.
It's a different pun in French Canadian.
Yes, it is.
Amazing.
Yes, it's
Alan?
I've said this before, but to any listener who has not heard my spiel on this, if you can speak multiple languages, please replay a Monsters Expedition in the other language. Please do it. My understanding from everyone that I've ever talked to in multiple languages and me playing in the other languages that I know, the localizations in this game are freaking excellent and very funny. They did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
So the last one I want to specify is the unidentified flying object, which has a bunch of redacted text, and so the translators had to identify what text in the other languages needed to be redacted.
Oh God, yeah. Because I think we talked about that a little bit, because obviously at that point we needed to make sure that the way that the text rendered also had a way to redact the
Yeah,
amount
so
of
there's
characters.
HTML
Yeah.
tags around highlighting it in highlighting it in black.
Yeah.
Um anyways, do you have any as we wrap up a little late, do you have any questions for us before we let you go?
I think I'm curious to ask possibly Alan more than
Yeah.
you, Syrenne, because of when you joined the project, but how it ended up, is that how did that fit with where you had started? Is it that you didn't have a vision for what it would be in terms of the words that got applied to it, or did you and it went in a different direction? Or I'm interested in how it went from your side.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 3.5 year project. And I started not having any kind of ideas to having not ideas, but ambition. Like I wanted it to be this like epic thing. I thought like, oh well, the scope of the puzzle complexity and the size of the world required to flesh that out means that the narrative should be similarly not large and bombastic, but like impactful. Like it should have a story, and that caused a lot of problems. So like what we ended up with, there's no way I could have like pictured it when we were starting it, but I do think it's the absolute best thing we could have ended up with. It fits the game so well. It like works together. It feels so cohesive that at the start of the project I could never have pictured that, because if I'd known up front, oh yeah, this will work perfectly, we could have saved ourselves so much hassle.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is that do you have a sense of which types of narrative or writing or story, in whatever form you think of it, work best in puzzle games?
I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of things that just get out of your way, which I think the writing in this game does. That's a different thing to like it working well. I think maybe like there's kind of a difference between like what the end product looks like and the process to get to the end product. And I think that puzzle games and explicit story, if you can do it well, I'm sure it leads to good results. But I think it's a complicated combination to execute well without something going wrong and causing problems.
Yeah, light touch feels right a lot of the time, unless it's, obviously there are so many exceptions at this point. I guess I'm talking more about the types of games that you and I have worked on together, because obviously stuff like the root trees are dead, it's like, well, that's a different beast, isn't it? I think that so just to give it a quick shout out, Spooky Express, like when I did some consulting on that and what might be possible in terms of giving it a thread in that direction, it was nice that to discuss it and settle on those comic panels in between the games and have a kind of like, okay, well, here's a gentle, very light touch flow. But I mean, I think also I am very much of the school of thought where if somebody wants to read, they will have gone and got a book, or they will have gravitated towards a different experience, or something that is explicitly, interactive fiction or something. And I think that a lot of the stuff that I write, I want to try, not always, sometimes you're not successful, but I want to try and keep it as short as possible, just so that the person can get to the point, and not have to just think, oh, did I read all of those, exhaustive
Right. I think it's very important for Monsters Expedition that each of the exhibits is like a very short amount of text.
I still feel like there's even just looking through that list, I'm like, I could have been more brutal with my editing.
Yeah, well, that's also Pip of 5 years later, because I'm sorry to say this game is half a decade old.
What? You have to say that, Syrenne?
Yes, that game came out on September 10th, 2020.
Oh, yeah.
This is why this is why you've worked on 3 Dracnet games. This, Spooky Express, and Sokoban Express.
Yeah, and all of them have involved finding different ways to tell a thing that doesn't necessarily have an order exactly.
Yes, how do we communicate something really briefly? A really brief idea. That is the tenet of a lot of Dracnet narrative and writing. All right.
Yeah. I love the chocolate box aspect of it. Just dip your hand in and see what you get, and have a nice time.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
This feels like an artificial cutoff, but unfortunately, like I accidentally said at the top when we weren't recording, this is a conversation that could go for 45 hours.
Before we wrap, I feel like some of our listeners would love me to ask this question. Pip, what is the deal with the leeches?
I sometimes just get an idea in my head that I can't get back out, and it really tickled me. So I think I tried to write nearly all of the exhibits for other people's enjoyment, and then I think the leeches were for me.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yay!
It's better for it, honestly.
That's why we work well together.
Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you online?
I am on Blue Sky and the Twitter, Instagram, all of those things. Wherever I am, it will be Philippa Warr. So PHILIPPAWARR.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And thank you for listening to the Dracnet and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoisemusic.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.